Hey guys, how you doing? The start of a brand new week. This is the United Daily Podcast on All for United. It's good to have your company this afternoon. We're well into lunchtime. Good to have you back. And if you are listening to this in your podcast platform of choice, I think you've got the right end of the bargain this week. I'm moving house at the end of the week. So at the moment, the whole house is turned upside down. So literally the only place I could record the show today is up here in the bedroom with a load of boxes around me. So you will see cats running about everywhere because they don't know what's going on. You might even hear things coming from outside because it's so hot in this room that I've had to open the window. So I'm sorry if there's any, so to speak, strange things happening amongst my screen today. But you won't want to hear much from me. You're going to want to hear from the Reds that we've got on the show. Dylan's joining me today. James is joining me as well, as we're going to have a look at how Twitter reacted to last night's win over Newcastle. Look, 3-1 sounds comfortable. It wasn't. It was a tricky game for United. So we're going to go over that. If you want to come and get in a live chat this lunchtime on youtube.com/All for United, put your thoughts in there. Quickly smash the like on the video. Subscribe to All for United. And let's get on with the show. And I think there is only one place to start, lads, and that is with our general thoughts on yesterday's game. Andrew Wall, who contributes quite a bit to All for United, he comes on shows. He's tweeted, "We got there in the end tonight, struggled in the first half, that's controlled in the midfield. We could not cope with the Newcastle pressing. Great goal from Rashford. Need to learn how to defend set pieces as they keep costing us goals. We got better in the second half." Dylan, for you, is that a fair reflection, or have you got any other thoughts to add to Andrew's tweet there?
No, I think Andrew's got it spot on, to be honest with you. I think we've been quite slow in the first half of games this season, and it's no surprise that we're a better second half team. And set pieces are a huge problem. 14 goals conceded from set pieces this season in the league, which is the third worst. And I think that all comes down to the goalkeeper that Solskjaer continues to keep his faith in. Unfortunately, I think there's a big decision that he needs to make there sooner rather than later.
So for you, do you think De Gea should have come and claimed that yesterday?
I think he should have. I think there's a couple of times he got caught yesterday. I think he should have come out and collected the first one that he punched, and then he ended up having to make a very good save from Joe Linton, even though when it took a deflection off Lindelof. I think he could have claimed that one. But he was impeded, so he I suppose he did get a punch on it. But I just think he needs to command his box a lot more. But look, he's not that type of goalkeeper. I think it's a bit obvious at this stage. He's at the club a decade now this summer. But I think Henderson does have that in his game. As we've seen, his command of the box and his aerial presence is a lot better for defending set pieces. And we give away a lot of cheap set pieces, a lot of diagonal free kicks, and our centre halves can't deal with them, and our goalkeeper doesn't fill us with confidence. So I think having a goalkeeper that could come out and command his box could take that pressure off our centre halves, who currently aren't performing to their ability.
James, what do you think? Who's to blame for that goal yesterday? Maguire got some stick. De Gea's getting some stick. The coaching staff are getting some stick because, let's face it, we keep conceding from crosses and set pieces. It's just not good enough. We keep conceding what I think are avoidable goals. If you're set up properly and you're coached well to iron out these errors, these goals should be avoidable. So who's to blame for that Newcastle goal yesterday?
Yeah, I agree with what Dylan was saying. I think, Maguire could have maybe got a little bit more in his header. I don't think he put it into a great area. If he's in doubt, you just got to put it behind for another corner. But I'm in agreement. I think De Gea's reluctance to come off his line has cost us points this season. It's cost us pretty valuable points this season, and will continue to cost us points this season. There's a lot of goals that have come from opposition putting a ball in and around the 6-yard area, which at this level, any other top keeper comes and collects. He's cleaning out any sort of attacker that's challenging him for it. So that is a worry. I think the defenders then have to accommodate themselves based on that. They're playing like defenders who are worried that their goalkeeper behind them isn't as strong as possible, and that's leading to little lapses of judgment, or maybe them being too overcautious and allowing for attackers to sneak in, as we're seeing. So I think it all comes from the goalkeeper, really. I think, we've got to give De Gea credit where it's due. He does make a few. He's still a decent shot stopper. He's kept us in and around the top 4 ever since Fergie retired, and I think he's done that largely on his own. So I think he deserves a huge amount of credit. But I think, it's all sort of a romantic story. We're not playing on ability anymore. I think we're playing on the idea of what De Gea represents to us as a club, and I think that needs to change soon. Whether we give him time to sort himself out, and if he doesn't, we let him go at the end of the season. I'm not sure, but yeah, I'm in agreement with Dylan. I think De Gea needs to. He's too old to be changing his game now, so I don't think he's ever going to improve on that. So I think it's something that needs addressing, and I think obviously to concede this many from set pieces isn't just down to De Gea. Obviously, there's a few defensive lapses. Lindelof's not good in the air either, and the coaching probably needs to be improved. But there's one big area for me that needs to be highlighted and worked on.
So, Dylan, from what James was saying there, because I keep watching these set pieces and I keep watching our defending from crossing. Maguire's not small, neither's Lindelof. We should be able to command the box. We had Matic in there as well yesterday. And for me, I mean, look, we can look at De Gea, and I'm getting your points that we need to look at David De Gea because maybe he's not coming off his line, he's not commanding the box enough. I completely understand that. But for me, what frustrates myself watching goals like that Newcastle scored is we just don't seem to be on our toes for the second ball. There doesn't really seem to be anyone closing down. We give Bailey stick for getting injured a lot. We give Bailey stick for being rash. But I can more or less guarantee you, if Eric Bailey was on that pitch, Maguire heads that ball, Bailey's straight out trying to block that. We had 4 defenders in a line standing still. So is this down to the coaching staff making sure that the players are up and reacting to these second balls? Or is it actually just the fact that De Gea isn't being brave enough? He isn't coming. Is it what I'm trying to say is it not a coaching issue? Is it individuals or is it a coaching issue? What's going wrong with these set pieces?
Yeah, I think you've touched upon a lot of key issues there, Ben. And as James said himself, I don't think there's one answer fits all. I think it's a collective of issues. I think Ollie has to take some responsibility, and his favoritism is kind of curbing us at some stage. I think Lindelof is well off the pace. I think Lindelof is actually quite a stylish centre half, but he doesn't have the physical attributes to play alongside Maguire. As Gary Neville said, the two of them are too similar, and we get done in behind when we try and play a high line because we've got no pace. And De Gea doesn't hold a high position like most modern goalkeepers, like Ederson and Alisson, who play as basically a keeper sweeper. So that allows that space in behind us to be exploited. So if we have Bailly there in the team, as you have seen, that gives us the ability to push an extra 5 yards up the field, which means that we can get the ball back quicker and that the other team's penned in more in their own half. So I think Bailly gives us that more security in terms of playing with a high line. And I think in the air, I think Bailly's underrated. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to the coaching. And Ollie's not to blame for the individual mistakes being made on the field. Like Harry Maguire is the most expensive defender in the world, and sometimes he's defending as sub standard. You know what I mean? It's like a Sunday league. We've seen it against Everton when the equaliser, Dominic Calvert-Lewin's equaliser in the last minute. Maguire has a tendency, especially on diagonal free kicks, to drop. I think he's trying to catch players offside, but he's dropping and nobody else is following. And that happened again last night against Newcastle, and Shelby nearly Kemford. And that's creating uncertainty for the other defenders who aren't filled with confidence at the minute. I think it also comes down to zonal marking the space in terms of marking a man, which is what Solskjaer has decided to do, which I don't, for one, think is the best option. So I think it's a collection of issues, but I think long term, we don't know if Henderson's going to be the right goalkeeper for United, and David De Gea is currently the highest paid player in the Premier League and the highest paid goalkeeper in the world, and he's been extremely poor since 2018. Like last season, for example, he conceded 44 goals in 43 games, and he kept 15 clean sheets in all competitions. This season, he's conceded 37 goals in 28 games, and he's only had 9 clean sheets. And since the start of the 2017 and 2018 season, he's been at fault for the most goals in the Premier League for a goalkeeper, alongside Martin Dubravka from Newcastle. Like, that's not the form of the highest paid goalkeeper in the world. And I think his flaws are overweighing his strengths at the minute. So I think a decision needs to be made there.
Yeah, I do agree with you on that. I also think that I just wanted to hit on that point that you was making there about we don't know if Dean Henderson is going to be the future in goal for United or not. That the fact of the matter is, we will never know until he is given a chance. And I think, James, you might have hit on the loyalty aspect of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's management being a bit of a frustration sometimes. And I think potentially here, if Henderson doesn't get the run of games whilst he is in A, good form, and B, he gets that opportunity to show it because of De Gea's form, we will just never know. You've got to give these players games at the highest level. Otherwise, you just will not know. So we'll have to wait and see. I saw on Twitter today, actually, there was an outrageous rumour flying around that United could look at switching De Gea with Donnarumma of AC Milan, as AC are interested with De Gea and Donnarumma stalling on contract talk. So look, we'll have to wait and see. It's going to be another merry-go-round this summer, that is for sure. Right, let's move on to the next tweet. And James, I'm going to come over to you first on this one. I thought this was really, really interesting, actually. I read a lot of Chris Winterburn's stuff. I really, really like him. He had his say on last night's match. Newcastle are such a poor football team. Manchester United were abysmal in the first half. No real chances created other than that shot from a usual non-scoring position. Look, let's just quickly hit on that first half performance. Why does it take half time for us to get up for games, especially at Old Trafford? Because we're so used as Manchester United Football Club making Old Trafford a fortress. It's the complete opposite this season. We're really, really struggling without fans at home, and we just don't seem to be able to start games quickly. What didn't work for us in that first half for you, James?
I mean, I'd even argue it was the first hour. I think Newcastle came flying out the blocks in the second half as well, which was even more worrying. I don't know. I think that maybe they crumble under pressure. I think, the tweet you've brought up is obviously correct. Newcastle are struggling. They're not a great footballing side. They're very much, sort of like us. They're very independent. They're very dependent on individual quality from the likes of St. Maximin and so on. But their pressing intensity yesterday just blew me away. For a team that's struggling as much as they are, they were straight at every single ball, putting us under pressure. We just didn't like that at all. I think there's a few players still in recovery mode from Sociedad. I think the fixture congestion may be getting to them, but it is a concern. I think we only really looked in control once we got it to 2-1. We went 1-0 up. We still didn't take control of the game. It just feels like we're getting way too reliant on this counter-attacking tactic. We're just reluctant to take charge of the game because it doesn't quite suit us. And I think we're not good enough at the back to rely on this counter-attacking tactic, because against a better team than Newcastle yesterday, we'd have been 2 or 3 down before we could even start mounting any sort of attacks. So, it is worrying, and it's something that needs to be changed before Chelsea. Obviously, Sociedad's not such a big worry on Thursday because we've got such a big advantage, but it is worrying. I can't see how you rectify it other than the players themselves, taking a look at themselves and thinking we need to be on it. I can't think it's anything tactical because it just seems to switch within an instant, doesn't it? You go 2-1 up and suddenly they're starting to play football. You sometimes see it where after 30 minutes they suddenly start playing. Something inside them changes. I'm not sure what it is. So I don't know how you really rectify it other than trusting in the players to take a look at themselves and forcing themselves to really be on it from the first whistle.
I think it's really interesting. We're getting loads of comments, James, agreeing with you and people having their say. Just a big shout out, by the way, to Paul, to Jamie. Paul Morrison's also in the chat as well. Hello to Mark, who's joining us. Hey, buddy, hope you're good. Love you and the family. And hello to Sean as well, who's got him putting his thoughts on this whole conversation around why we keep starting games slowly. People are mentioning fatigue, and I get European football fatigue has been a thing for years. It really, really has been. But I just feel like we constantly start games slow at home. And I know whatever happens, or what has ever happened this season, we've always come off the back of a fixture being played 2 or 3 days before. So obviously there's always going to be a little bit of fatigue at the start of the games. But you've just got to switch it around this way. And I know a lot of people say we're not expected to be title challengers right now, but whether people like it or not, we're second in the league. We're the closest, so to speak, to City. And we've got the quality there to be able to potentially challenge City. When you look at squad by squad, that top 4, I think the Cats are honestly doing my head in today. But I think what we've got to all look at is the fact that we can't put teams like Newcastle away when we're home to them. There's been so many games this season at Old Trafford where we could have made 3-4-0 statements, made it comfortable on ourselves, and we've just struggled. And it's really, really difficult to comprehend that. because at Old Trafford we shouldn't be struggling. What did you make of Newcastle yesterday? Because I also agree with what this tweet said and what James said. From what I've seen in Newcastle this year, this was a far better team than we played at St James's Park, by the way, earlier on in the season. I thought Newcastle were really good yesterday for how poor we were.
Yeah, I think Newcastle... Look, Steve Bruce is getting plenty of stick. Newcastle have always been a club that have divided opinion, especially in the Mike Ashley era. But I think Steve Bruce has done relatively well with the little that he has. I think Callum Wilson has like maybe 40 or 50% of the goals this season. He's the main goal threat. St. Maximum's been out injured for quite a few. He was out for quite a few weeks as well, but he's back. I was impressed with them yesterday. I think they actually played quite well against us at St. James's Park, but we blew them away in the last 15, mainly thanks to Bruno, as usual. But as James said, for ourselves, starting games this season, and I think under Solskjaer, slowly has just been a recurring theme. And I think that's down to mentality. I think it's down to the players sleepwalking through games. And that just shows for me that there's a lack of leaders in this team. You can't have Bruno digging players out. You know, as Gary Neville has said, we're a team that plays in moments. There's only been 3 games this season for me personally that we've dictated, and that's the Leeds game at home, the Southampton game, and the Sociedad game the other night. Besides that, it's been individual moments of brilliance, mainly from our key players such as Bruno and Rashford, that has bailed us out time and time again. And that needs to change if we are to potentially challenge City, which I think that we're probably about 18 months to 2 years away from, because I think that we still have a lot of work to do on the squad and several positions need to be addressed.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. And when you say there, your points on that we've only dictated a few games this season, you're absolutely spot on. And I think, though, you know, as fans, coming off the back of that Sociedad game, we'd hope that the players would learn something from that match. I know it's completely different opposition and, you know, it was less open yesterday. But you'd hope that there'd be a little bit of confidence, a little bit of sense of belief to be able to put together an extra pass or be able to, you know, have a shot on goal, you know, as and when that time arises. And I think Rashford yesterday only had one real shooting position that he took right. He could have had 3 or 4, but he just didn't take it on. So at some point, it's just got to click, and fingers crossed it's going to happen sooner rather than later. I'm going to come away from Chris's tweet because I want to focus on something really, really, really positive. We seem to be involving Alexei on all of these shows at the moment because his tweets are just real talk, to be quite honest with you. He tweeted this yesterday. Let me zoom in slightly. On Dan James, his work rate is superb. He's improved his end product so much. He's scored in his last 4 appearances. 4 or 3? Has he scored in 4? Blimey. People need to respect Dan James more. James, do you need to respect Dan James more?
Definitely before the Southampton. My opinions of him before the Southampton game don't match what they are now. I think, you know, he's. I'm not sure about 4. He's definitely got 3 goals and an assist in his last 3 games, because that was being widely reported. But yeah, I mean, I said it yesterday on Wall of Reds. I think his decision making and his end product is something that's let him down for so long. He's obviously got the ability to get in behind and make space for himself. But we're seeing now in the last couple of games, he seems to be mentally maturing as a player, and I think that's obviously going to be a positive for us. But you know, it's going to make him a real difficult sort of asset to mark as an opposing team, because he's already got the speed that's very difficult to handle. You then, if you can get a grip on his speed, you've then got to worry about what he's going to do with the ball. If he's not just going to knock it past you, he could now put in a cross. He could now, you know, get a shot off to a decent quality. So, you know, he's adding more to his game. It's easy to forget he is still very early 20s as well, and I think, you know, he seems to be determined to improve himself, which is the best quality you could have, especially as a young player. You know, he stays out of the media, doesn't he? He gets his head down. He just seems to be improving every week. And I think I'm really hoping this isn't just a purple patch like we saw when he first came in, because, you know, if he gets it depends if Cavani's injured for quite a while, but if he gets a decent little run of games, gets his confidence up, I can see him continuing to improve and hopefully becoming a decent asset to this team. I think if he can just bulk himself up a little bit as well. I think it's just a little bit too easy to knock him off the ball at the minute. But
James, he needs that low centre of gravity that Eden Hazard was known for to complement his height and to complement his pace, doesn't he? He needs to be able to really stand firm and keep hold of that ball.
Yeah, definitely. I think if he can just get a little bit of close control as well, he seems to
Yeah.
be very much a knock it in front of him and run onto the end of it type of player. If he can get a little bit of close dribbling in, ability to actually take on a man rather than just run past him, then he is going to be a very decent asset to United. Whether he'll ever be a true first team player is still up for debate, but he seems to be thriving at the minute, and I'm all for it.
Well, but by having someone like Dan James in your squad, you've got someone who can come in and do a job, especially if he's got passes in the team. He's always looking to run in behind, but I've always thought that Dan James has always been tidy when he's got the ball as well. He doesn't tend to give it away a lot. It's just the end product 9 times out of 10, and actually suiting the system of the team. For instance, we're not a team that plays long balls in behind. Never really done it. So Dan James needs to adapt to the way we play as much as we've got to adapt to the way that he plays. And I thought yesterday was really good. And I also think the stability offers wan-bissaka makes wan-bissaka a better player, a much better player. And I thought yesterday there was glimpses of them combining really, really nicely together. And I think sometimes a really good partnership between players can actually give you a bit of quality edge about your team, more than having 2 really good players in each position who don't necessarily have a good partnership. Hope that made sense, because it's quite a tongue twister for me to actually come out with. But you know what I'm saying. So I think if wan-bissaka and James can get a good little connection going on there's no reason why we can't then just say to Greenwood, right, knuckle down, focus on that number 9 position, because whenever someone's injured, you're coming in. Martial's clearly better off the left and needs to be used in rotation with Rashford. I thought yesterday Greenwood showed up Martial when it comes to how to play as a number 9. The way he was getting in the box, the way he was getting in that 6-yard box, his movement, his runs, you could just see Cavani's influence all over Mason Greenwood at number 9 yesterday. And he created a couple of really good opportunities for himself, which is a sign of a true striker. Anyway, enough of Martial and Greenwood. Dan James, Dylan, how impressed have you been with him? And let's talk about his work rate. How good is it to have a player in the team who's going to run his socks off?
Yeah, I think Dan James, I think he set himself up to fail by starting like a house on fire. I think the start of his United career set him up to fail because he was going to suffer a dip in form like he has, and I think he's not been helped by Solskjaer's tinkering, to be honest with you. But I think he does exactly what he says on the tin. I think he's just basically he's a brilliant squad player. And we all know, as being United fans over the years, squads win trophies, and he's definitely good to come on and contribute in cup competitions and in key matches. I personally would play him away against the big teams, because if you can remember, he created carnage a couple of years ago against City away. When we bet them. I don't think he's a winger personally. I think he's actually more of a split striker, and I think he's actually quite underrated as a finisher. I think he's actually got a decent finish on him. He actually reminds me of Ji-Sung Park, the way he plays.
We'll see him at left back next week then.
Yeah, well, just his high energy and the way he just runs himself into the ground. He's not the most technically gifted player, but he gives it all. And I'd actually rather see him on the right with Diallo, hopefully in the next 12 to 18 months. And I think Greenwood really needs to start being played through the centre. Because as we saw yesterday, Greenwood's a striker. He's just, he didn't score, but he created more opportunities for himself in his cameo than Martial did in 60 or 70 minutes. Martial's just fallen off a cliff lately, and he just needs some time out of the team till he tries to regain some of his form and being brought back. And we've seen yesterday, Rashford can't be playing on the right to accommodate for an out-of-form Martial. Rashford's brilliant on the left, and that's where he needs to play. So long term, I think Dan James and Diallo on the right side, unless we bring somebody else in. Cavani and Greenwood through the centre, and Martial coming in for Rashford when Rashford needs a break, because Martial is not good enough to be starting at the minute, just due to his lack of form. The quality's there, but at 25, I think that's going to be the ceiling. I don't think he's going to kick on to the next level.
And let's face it, players like Martial, James, Fred, you've got these players. Lindelof's another one. Eric Bailly could be another one too. Brandon Williams, I know he's young, but could be another name that you shout. As this squad gets better and we start looking for players who are first in class in their position, that's when you start to build out the squad with the current players who are in the starting 11 actually dropping back slightly. So all of these players have something to prove. And I think attitude goes a long way. And Dan James definitely has the right attitude that's going to impress his manager and the coaching staff. So fingers crossed he can keep it clicking in gear. I suppose the last, actually quickly, before I come on to the news tweet, which does mention Dan James, I'll read it out now. Not the prettiest game, but a win's a win. Big 3 points given other teams are dropping them. Luke Shaw, man of the match, and Dan James very positive. On to Sociedad. He's mentioned Dan James anyway. Just very, very briefly then, Dylan, you mentioned how you play James against the big teams. Does James start against Chelsea for you?
It depends on what Solskjaer is going to do, but I think Solskjaer's tendency to hack the midfield. I think he could play. I think he could play maybe in a diamond, but I know that he's going to start McTominay and Fred. I think Cavani will be fit, so I'd probably go with James on the right, Cavani through the centre, and Rashford on the left, and then McTominay, Fred, and Bruno.
Cool. James, what about you? Does he start against Chelsea?
I think he's probably more useful against Chelsea than he is against a typical Newcastle side. I think you're going away to Chelsea. Ole's going to sit back, given our recent performances. He's not going to take the game to Chelsea. So if you can get, especially if they play Alonso at left wing back like they've been doing, Dan James can get in behind him all day, every day, can't he? So I think he could be a real asset against Chelsea. So I'd like to see him start personally.
Do you know, I was thinking the other day as well, do you know what I want to see? And for some reason, I don't know why I'm thinking this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I thought over the last 2 seasons, since Rashford slightly adapted his game to be better on the left wing, whenever he's played up front in a 2, he hasn't looked right. He's not been the same player. So I don't really want to see Rashford move to a number 9. But if we are going to play Martial and Rashford in that same front line, potentially Anna Greenwood or a James, I would actually be more... my mind would be more convinced if Martial was starting on the left and Rashford as a 9. Because I also think then that way, what you're not doing is giving Rashford the opportunity to just completely and consistently run at defenders and losing the ball. At least with Martial playing there, him interchanging with Rashford a little bit inside, I just think it could work a bit nicer. Plus, Rashford always looks for Bruno. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but when Rashford's got the ball and he opens up, he always looks for Bruno. So with Rashford just in front of Bruno, there might be some nice triangles there between Martial on the left, Rashford a bit more in the middle, and Bruno, just to be able to work defenders around a little bit. Anyway, that's just my opinion on that. Let's move on to Liam's tweet. I want to focus on the fact that we managed to get the 3 points in the bag. Dylan, let me come to you first. Obviously, we saw Chelsea drop points. We've got them next as well. So, we must beat them. We also saw the fact that Liverpool have dropped more points. We're now 9 points clear of them. How important was us to just get that win yesterday?
Yeah, I think it was... Look, I think everybody at halftime was sitting on Twitter ready to put up a few tweets. We'd be deleting them 45 minutes later, as we know from following United this season. Look, it was important to get the victory and the 3 points to give ourselves a little bit of breathing space, because 6 or 7 weeks ago, we were being touted as title contenders, which was extremely premature, as we all know, but it was good to be involved briefly. But I think we got ourselves now in a little bit of a battle for maybe finishing in 2nd or 3rd position. And I think these wins are crucial, especially after dropping relatively gimme games against Sheffield United and West Brom. And especially, I think the game that hurt me the most was that Everton game, because that was definitely a game that we should have won. We were 2-0 up at half-time, and a De Gea error and a mistake by Maguire gave them that draw when that game was put to bed. So I think it's just important to win these games against, the lower half, games that we've struggled to win this season, but games that we need to definitely be having as bankers long-term moving forward, because these are the type of games that you win to get up the table.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And James, just on that, and some of the points that Dylan's made and the point there that Liam's made as well, I had a conversation with a fellow United fan over the weekend where he was basically saying we are now in a battle for top 4. We're not even battling anymore for top 2. The battle for all the teams under City is just to make that top 4 place. I was saying, but there's a difference between the real world in terms of, yes, of course, top four's not certain. So we've still got to keep fighting for the points to make top four certain. But if I'm United, I'm saying, right, the target has to be top two now. We're battling for top two, not top four, which the logic was sort of lost a little bit between the tweets. But still, for you, in terms of expectation levels, does it matter where we finish in the top four this season? Do we have to just get it and just keep getting the 3 points? Or do we need to look at going on that run, because anything below second will now be a disappointment?
Well, yeah, you look at the expectations for us this season and what fans want. They never expected a title, but they wanted progression. Now, progression from third place last year would surely be second place this year. So I think that's got to be the target. I think that no one in their right mind would possibly think we can still go on and win this title, other than if Manchester City hand it to us on a plate. But that second place is ours. Leicester have a tendency to drop off at the end of the season, and our contenders are currently West Ham and Chelsea. Other than that, so I think it's very much in our hands. I think we have still got a lot of big games to come up, which is slightly worrying. We've still got obviously Chelsea to come up, City, Liverpool, Spurs to play again, just to name a few. Obviously Leicester as well, which will be a big game. But I think you've just got to look at, like I said earlier, the targets for this season, and that was progression. No one this season thought we were going to go on and win the league. I don't think anyone really thought we were going to be as comfortably inside top four as we are in right now. So I think we've got to just keep going for second place. Second place, win a trophy. Hopefully win one or two trophies if we can, and that'll be our best season post Fergie, surely. If we can win the Europa League and the FA Cup, it's a long shout, but win the Europa League and the FA Cup, get second place, that's comfortably our best season since Fergie. So I think that definitely does have to be the target for this season.
Shout out to Bits and Bobs, by the way, who's joined us, and Jeff as well in the live chat. Hope you're good, lads. I've got to agree here with also Jacob saying that progression is more points and a better goal difference for me, even if we end up fourth. I can see where you're coming from, but obviously points mean places. So surely you prioritise the place over the points, because you just don't know what's happening in the world for you to be in that position, so to speak. For instance, if City win the league this year by, let's say, 10 to 12 points, that's a massive margin, but they're still going to end up with less points than they have probably in their previous championship title wins because of the season it's been. But they won't care about the points total, just a trophy. I do agree with you, James. I want to see us win a trophy, but I'm not going to be frank about this. I'm going to be so pissed off if we don't finish in the top two this year, because I just feel like if we don't, that doesn't show progression in terms of the mentality side of things. We keep getting semi-finals, not winning trophies. We should be consolidating and able to go on a form now to get second place, like Bits and Bobs has just said in the chat. And I think if we don't, that's a worry for me. That's a real worry for me, because we've got the quality to be able to. And I genuinely think if we don't finish second, I think Leicester will. And I think we should not be being beaten to the top two by Leicester. And although I'm not disrespecting Leicester here, but you've just got to look at the club statures and the squads. You still take United squad over Leicester every day of the week. So, I mean, although I'd love Maddison and Ndidi, but still. And I've always said I'd love Jamie Vardy too.
What about their manager?
What, Brendan Rodgers?
Yeah.
Do you know what? I think he is destined, when it all goes tits up for Arteta, for Arsenal. I think he'd end up at Arsenal, personally. I just think that he would see that as a step up in club stature, and he will go there and he'll do brilliant. I've always rated Brendan Rodgers, and I've always said that Liverpool shouldn't have let him go when they did. They should have stuck by him, because I think he's a brilliant manager. Right, let's get into one last tweet, because I think we need to speak about this. Shola Shoreteri made his debut last night, which was a great moment for the club, great moment for him. Rashford was the one he replaced. How good was it, Dylan, to see the young lad take to the pitch at 17 years old?
Yeah, it's brilliant. Look, I think it was the 240th academy graduate. I think
yeah.
that was the one that went through.
12th youngest as well, I think.
Yeah,
as well.
Something like that. If you look back on his career, I think he's just made history throughout it in his young career so far. I think he's the youngest ever player named on a bench in the Europa League and for United and stuff like that. Look, I watched a little bit of the under-23s, and he looks like a special player. And he's at the perfect club to fulfill his potential.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think him and Amad Diallo have something going on in reserves as well from just the first couple of games.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm going to point you guys to a video I done with Peter Bolton and United Henry on the next big young star coming through the academy. Peter Bolton, who's watched a number of players come through over the years, such an experienced United fan, knows an incredible lot about football, and he doesn't just watch the under 18s or the under 23s. He watches like the under 16s, the under 15s at tournament. He goes to Spain to the tournaments, obviously in the real world when he could have before the coronavirus pandemic hit. He knows when he sees a good young talent. So go check out that video. It's on the United Daily now. Go check it out in the playlist on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/AllForUnited. What about you, James? What do you make? Not just of Shoya Terry, who of course we'd love to see potentially on Thursday, but also Amad Diallo. The future looks bright, doesn't it?
Definitely. It was nice that sort of that feeling yesterday of having an actual homegrown player. Obviously, I know he was initially at Newcastle's academy, but you know the point still stands. I think Diallo was nice to see come in because he's young and he's expensive, and we want to see him do well. But that feeling you get from a actual academy product coming through is always nice to see. I'm happy Solskjaer gave him his chance, because I thought the fact that he didn't play him at all against Sociedad made me think maybe he is just there for the ride along. But you know, we've seen Ole's willing to give him a chance. Obviously, he didn't. I was impressed by what I saw from Diallo against Sociedad. I thought he did a few really nice things while he was on the pitch. Obviously, Shortieri hasn't quite got that physicality yet to really make any sort of impact. You know, there's a few nice touches, but very easily eased off the ball. But you know, he's 17. You're going to expect that. But yeah, I think that I'd like to see a few more academy products brought through before the end of the season as well. You know, just to get the names on the board and give them a little bit of experience. You know, there's a lot that come to mind. There's a few that are on loan as well that I'd like to see in and around the first team in a couple of years. But the future is definitely looking bright.
Yeah, I think we've got the likes of Ethan there and James Garner, who could definitely play a part in the first team next year. Yeah. Brandon Williams will probably go out on loan to get some more experience for him as well and some games in his legs. I think you've got players like Shoya Terry and Hannibal who can still, they're still so young, 17, 18. They'll just still spend another couple of years maturing at under 23 whilst coming in and out of that first team squad, learning from the players around them as well. I think, you know, we have got some really exciting players there, and Hugo as well, and even McNeil, who's currently smashing the goals for the under 18s. We've got some incredible talents, and I just hope as well Mengi gets some game time at Derby, because again, he is a player that Peter said one of the best defenders he has seen come through, even better than Axel. So really excited about the young players out there. Guys, thank you for joining us. Subscribe to youtube.com/AllForUnited. We've got another United Daily tomorrow. We've got Russell on the show with us tomorrow as well, which is going to be very, very good fun. And Raman Paul's going to be joining us too. So make sure you join us at 12:30 tomorrow lunchtime. Thank you so much. James, thank you so much. Check us out on your podcast platform of choice. Just go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and search All for United, United Daily. This is actually going to go out tomorrow, as I need to sort the boxes out so that we can actually move house this weekend. Take it easy, guys. Stay safe and speak to you tomorrow.